You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Good morning, and welcome to Mission Matters Live, a program focused on promoting a spirit of mission among the people of God in the Archdiocese of Chicago. My name is Megan Mio. I'm the director of the Global Mission Office in the Archdiocese, and you're listening to WNDZ 750 AM. Our engineer this morning is Mike. Mission Matters airs on the second Wednesday of every month, so thank you for being with us. This month, in September, we are blessed to have with us Father Pontian Kaweesa, who is the National Director of the Pontifical Mission Societies in the East African nation of Uganda. And as our listeners may know, the Pontifical Mission Societies are an international network within the Roman Catholic Church that supports our mission of evangelization and fosters the missionary spirit among the people of God. And I know Father Pontian will be telling us a little bit more about that a little later in the show. But suffice it to say that Father Pontian is the national representative for the country of Uganda. And I myself here in Chicago am the representative for our archdiocese here in Chicago. So he and I are part of that same network, along with all of you, all of our listeners who are members as well. So we're so lucky to have Father Pontian here in studio. He's here with us in Chicago and has been here as a mission appeal speaker who he already visited 2 of our parishes this summer. And I know you've been traveling around the country as well, seeing family and friends and making those mission appeal asks as well. So you're familiar with the Chicago area, and I think we'll talk a little more about how that is as well in the show. So we're just so lucky to have you here. I want to welcome you and thank you for being here with us, Father Pontian.
Thank you, Megan Mio, for having me on this program.
Of course. Well, it's great to have you in person, too, because I think that this allows us to have a little bit more of a conversation and discussion. And so what I wanted to talk about with you is just to get to know you a little bit better, let our listeners learn a little more about you, especially your connections here in Chicago, and then we can talk more about Pontifical Mission Societies. So just to get us started, I know that I mentioned, of course, you're coming from Uganda, and I wondered if you could just tell us a little bit about your background. What part of Uganda are you from, and tell us about how you became a priest.
All right. Thank you, Megan Mio. I'm Father Pontian Kaweesa from the Diocese of Kiyinda-Mityana in Uganda. My vocation for the priesthood started right in the home of my parents. We are a missionary priest from France. Father Gabriel Bestow used to come and stayed with us at home. He would move from there to go to other villages to preach the gospel and to celebrate Mass. And I was his altar server. That must have gotten me hooked because I must have been like 12 or 13 years. And when my mother told him that I wanted to be a priest like him, this priest offered to pay my school fees in a grade school seminary on condition that I passed the interview.
Of course.
As luck would have it, I passed the interview and started grade 6. He paid for my tuition from grade school through high school seminary and also through college in Uganda.
Wow.
And he did that for several other young men who had this vocation to become priests. And after college, then my bishop obtained 2 scholarships for 2 of us to come and complete our theological studies and formation at the University of St. Mary of the Lake, Mundelein Seminary, here in the Archdiocese of Chicago.
Woohoo! Had you ever been to the U.S. before then?
Never. That was my first time.
Yeah.
Everything was new.
Right.
The plane was new, the airport was new, big roads, big cars.
Sure.
Winter was news to me, but I survived all the 6 winters, and I'm here to testify.
It can be done.
It can be done.
Oh my gosh. So okay, now so this missionary priest was an angel for you. Really.
He was like God sent angel for me.
Yeah.
And for all those other young men that became priests.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't have rectories everywhere, and he was half blind, he couldn't drive. Roads like we are poor, even if you know how to ride, you would have fallen down. So the easiest thing to do was for him to stay in a family, in an area,
I see.
and then he would go on visiting on foot and celebrating Mass in different communities. And many people in my villages did not want to have a foreigner living with them. They said our homes are not too good. Ours was even worse and much smaller, but my dad and my mom accepted. And he was gracious enough to say, I will stay with you. And for us, the children, that was the happiest time of our life.
Huge.
Staying with this man. He could speak our language.
Oh, okay.
But everything around the house turned. We had our best behavior. The food that was cooked was fried with the smell of the cooked food.
Better.
I mean, like, we lived with a European in our home. That was unheard of.
It's a big deal.
But more especially, it is the gospel, the good news that he was preaching. And, like, I mean, I was helping him to carry his bags and do the mass serving. But there are other children who, like, always followed him. He used to do this, like, when the kids were on holiday. So wherever he was going, I would be carrying his bag, but there would be a line of kids following to go where. So it was quite an event for us to have a missionary live among us.
Well, I mean, he was somebody you admired, and, you know, he had been around, had traveled, and could just be such a teacher.
Exactly.
And a motivator to you and your whole family to be the best that you could be.
Exactly. And in those days when we did not have Mass in our areas for many months, having a priest come for a week or 2 and having Mass here and there, that was a Christmas for us.
Special occasion.
In terms of Mass. So it was really beneficial to us.
And you learned young about what it meant to be a priest, too.
Yes, we have those grade school seminaries. I hear this was also a high school seminary.
Yeah,
go lower than that. That's the one we had over there.
Right. We're here at the Quigley Pastoral Center. And now getting back to Mundelein, jumping ahead
All right.
a little bit here, you were specially selected to come study here. And you mentioned, here we are at the Quigley Pastoral Center, that you saw when you arrived here today, Bishop Robert Casey, who's our Vicar General today, was a classmate of yours.
Was a classmate of mine. What are the chances that I had to meet him today?
You happened to see
And he
him.
says, oh my God, my day has been eventful, but it's now even more eventful. It's been a happy day, but it's even happier because we have been long classmates, long friends, and even Bishop Mark Bartosik is my classmate.
Okay.
Bishop Ron Hicks is my classmate. Bishop Mike McGovern is my classmate. So it's good to know that the mission of the church continues, and these bishops are continuing to, and other classmates that became priests. I wanted to mention that I had as my teachers Bishop Jerry Kikenas, who was just retired in Arizona.
From Arizona,
Monsignor John Canary was the rector and my spiritual director at Mundelein.
Oh my gosh.
And Bishop Jerry Steki was my teacher. And Bishop Bob Barron is also my teacher.
Of course, yeah.
And there's one teacher that I can't fail to mention. And that is Father Charlie Meyer, elderly priest. I think he was in his late 80s, and he was teaching us that he was riding his bike on the compound. And I admired this man at his age, teaching us difficult things.
Was willing to...
But also riding his bike. He was like more the scientist. He did, he told us so many things. Googleplex, Google numbers. I never heard of the word Google until Father Maya mentioned it. But we pray for him because he passed on.
It's passed, wow. Well, now you mentioned, of course, that you, and I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, you come from the Diocese of Kiyinda-Mityana?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, and our listeners our eagle-eared listeners will remember we had two seminarians on our radio program before who were studying at Mundelein from the same diocese.
Exactly.
And so those two gentlemen, Father Peter and Father Falasco, are inheritors of your previous experience coming here and returning back to serve in their home diocese.
In their home diocese, yes. And they are there now teaching in a high school seminary.
Wow.
Mundelein, the Sacred Heart Seminary. And I think they are doing a good job. They are passing on all the good qualities and education they received here
good experience from here
in Chicago.
Wonderful. And I know that you have too. So we have just a few minutes before our next break.
All right.
So if you could just give us a general summary of some of the other ministry experiences that you've had from the time that you were ordained that led you ultimately to this current role you have as Director of Pontifical Missions. But what other kinds of ministries have you been involved in?
Basically, I'm going to say one.
Okay.
Because after I finished my studies in 1994, I went back to Uganda and I was ordained as a priest.
Yeah.
But almost immediately, my bishop sent me back to do an STL program at Mundelein again.
Okay.
And
1 more year.
2 more years. And immediately after the 2 years, as soon as I finished, an appointment letter arrived. We have posted you to teach theology in this regional major seminary in Uganda, in Kampala.
Okay.
So, and I taught theology in that seminary called St. Mbaga Major Seminary, Gaba, for 22 years. And teaching was not the only thing that I did, but I taught Christology, sacramental theology, theological anthropology, Mariology, all those logy.
Those sound like big things.
I was also involved in pastoral ministry in the nearby parishes. I would go and venture and volunteer to say mass and baptize and do weddings, But at the seminary, I was also in charge of sports for the seminarians. And as I was teaching, I was also selected to be the diocesan director of the Pontifical Mission Societies for my diocese.
You were diocesan.
So I was teaching and then diocesan director while teaching, juggling between those two things. But and then, but one thing I wanted to mention, after I went back to Uganda, mine was the first computer on the compound. If you had to get any email or send an email, you had to come to my room. So my room was busy. Thanks to Mundelein for introducing me to such things that didn't exist in Uganda by then.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
Okay. So then, I'm sure your experience as a diocesan director for Pontifical Mission Societies led you then to, they thought, well, if he can handle that.
If he can handle that, maybe we better risk.
I mean, a national director is a big deal. There are only as many as there are nations, with enough Catholics to be represented.
That's right.
And we have a national director here in the U.S. who's one of your colleagues, Monsignor Harrington, whose offices are in New York City.
Exactly.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that, I think, but after we come back from this break.
All right.
So hold your next thought. We'll come right back to it, Father Pontian.
Thank you.
We'll be right back to continue our discussion with Father Pontian Kaweesa. Stay tuned.
Catholic Charities After Supper Visions program offers guests of our Tuesday night supper the opportunity to learn the art of photography. These talented guests, who are often experiencing homelessness, are offered disposable cameras, and they work with volunteer professional photographers to learn the basics of taking photos. Then, the artists go out and capture images on film of anything they find to be beautiful or interesting in the world. Meet the artists and see their extraordinary photos at this year's After Supper Visions photo exhibition on Friday, September 22nd from 5 to 7 p.m. in Vincent Hall at 721 North LaSalle Street. That's Friday, September 22nd from 5 to 7 p.m. Visit After Supper Visions for more information. At After Supper Visions, we are developing film, talent, and hope.
I can't imagine myself going into any other school.
Our school fosters growth by being a backbone to our family.
My kids are incredibly well-rounded. I see a lot of kindness in them on a daily basis.
One of the things I think Catholic schools do well is personalize the learning experience. You can hear joy in the classrooms.
I feel that I'm happy that I am in this kind of school.
Our school communities provide students with academic excellence and character education in a supportive and stable learning environment. Come see for yourself. Visit archchicago.org/findaschool.
Community is core to Catholic Charities' founding mission. For more than 100 years, we have met people and families where they are, serving anyone in need, regardless of their faith, gender, race, or ethnicity. As our world absorbs the economic, political, and social aftershocks of the pandemic, 50% or more of the 6 million people living in Cook and Lake counties have little or no savings. They are a paycheck away from zero. We are deeply grateful to everyone in the Catholic Charities community who partners with us to alleviate the suffering of the people we serve and offer them a better path forward. We are witnessing a message of mercy and hope to a world very much in need. Learn more at CatholicCharities.net.
Welcome back to Mission Matters Live. I am Megan Neo, Director of the Global Mission Office. I'm here with Father Pontian Kaweesa, who is the National Director of the Pontifical Mission Societies for the country of Uganda. And he is here with us in studio. We're so glad here visiting to visit family and friends and to make mission appeals, like so many of our visiting missionaries. Before the break, we were just talking a little bit about Father Pontian's background, his history, his connections here in Chicago as a former student at Mundelein Seminary, and an STL student as well. I didn't realize you'd come back for a few years too. So lots of experience, lots of friendships, relationships, mentors here in Chicago, as well as your experience prior, what led you to become a priest. So now, I, of course, mentioned you're the director, the National Director of Pontifical Mission Societies, and I thought it might be helpful as we kind of move into a discussion about that work for our listeners who may not be familiar with those terms, just talk a little bit about what that means. Can you tell us in your own words about what are the Pontifical Mission Societies?
Thank you. What are the Pontifical Mission Societies? It's a mouthful.
It is. Big
but,
words. Yeah.
And it's even harder if you translate it in local language.
Oh, boy.
But we try. The Pontifical Mission Societies are the worldwide network of prayer, mission, and missionary charity. Those three elements make up the... And as you said, they are in every country. Mm-hmm. They belong to the Catholic Church. And because they are of and by the Pope, That's why they are pontifical. They are 4. But this is not the time to mention each and every detail. But the first one is the Pontifical Mission Society for the propagation of the faith.
Yes.
Where we spread the gospel, evangelize everybody. Those who have heard and are slacking, and those who have never heard, we want them to hear about the good news. Then the next society is the Society for Missionary Childhood Association, I think they call it here in the U.S.
That's right.
That is for the children, the apostolate. You know, the children also have their own apostolate. They pray for fellow children in all over the world, and they have as their motto, children helping children in prayer, material, spiritual elements. So there's that society, Missionary Childhood Association. And then we also have the Society for St. Peter the Apostle. St. Peter is success of Jesus on earth. So this one is about the vocations, the priesthood and religious life. So this society helps in that line. Prayer, promotion, sponsoring of vocations.
Right, like your own.
We do need priests. We do need religious men and women. And we need this society in terms of supporting and in prayer, informing and all that. And then the last one is called the Society for Pontifical Missionary Union. And this is basically a union of priests, religious men and women, pastoral leaders, lay leaders, those who are responsible for catechesis and religious education. And the purpose of this is for all those agents to engender the missionary spirit so that these people may better animate others to share their faith and to be missionaries themselves by supporting missionary work of the church worldwide. Basically, those are the 4, but I'm not even doing justice.
Oh my gosh.
But the thing is, they are like the arms that the Holy Father uses to do the mission of the church throughout the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my thought is always, too, that each of these societies were founded at different times by different holy people, some of whom who are in the process of becoming saints. But that each of them was really revolutionary when they were founded. In particular, I think of the Society for the Propagation of the Faith, probably the best known. Essentially, the point of the society was to say that we're all involved in the missionary efforts of the church. That, of course, we need leaders, need people who are willing to go in places far away, remote, war-torn, whatever the case. But we all are needed to fulfill this missionary effort. Our prayers, our actions, our sacrifices are necessary. And of course, we all are missionaries, even if we can't go far, far away. So this is a way for us to really participate in our day-to-day lives and also in this significant way through participation in these societies. I would say our Society for the Propagation of Faith is best known. The Missionary Childhood is best known at schools and religious ed programs here in the U.S. and around the world. But yeah, it is a network because we are all involved, the entire Universal Church, including Uganda, not just receiving but also giving and praying and offering our strength of our faith. So now talk a little bit about your work as a national director of these 4 societies. I would guess you travel around the country. You are engaging with those local dioceses and churches. And, you see the faith of the people. So just tell us a little bit about the faith in the people of Uganda and what your job consists of.
Well, Uganda is a small country, population of 44 million, and over 80% of that population are Christians. 40% are Catholics. We have 19 dioceses. Now, that's too small compared to the 194 dioceses in the U.S.
In the U.S.,
but 14 in Uganda is a big deal because the distances, given the roads, and the sizes of those dioceses, and the parishes are enormous.
Yeah.
I was kind of trying to compare.
Yeah.
There are some parishes in Uganda that are bigger than the Archdiocese of Chicago. Whoa. And that's one parish. So if you are to move from the center of the diocese to the last faithful, to that outstation, 60 miles this way or 40 this way, and then the roads are not paved. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes you have to cross rivers and those swamps, Right. You balance between those poles,
Difficult. Right.
The work is enormous. But we have a diocesan director of the Pontifical Mission Societies in every diocese. Mm-hmm. And he or she also has a team of animators that they use to do this work in the diocese. Yeah. And as a national director, my work is to coordinate, to give them the programs, to visit them whenever I can, to animate them with my team. I work with a Sister Stella, who is the National Secretary for the Society of St. Peter Apostle. Okay. I work with the lady, Angela. She's the National Secretary of Missionary Childhood. Mm-hmm. And I am the director, but also run the propagation of the faith. Yeah. So between the three of us, we try to make sure we visit. Sometimes we combine dioceses together. Like we have 4 archdioceses in Uganda. So we may say, this month we are going to the Archdiocese of Kampala, or the Archdiocese of Gulu in the north, or the Archdiocese of Mbarara in the southwest, or the Archdiocese of Tororo in the east. And then the priests and animators have to come and we give them like a workshop, formation workshop. We share reports, and that's basically, I'm on the road most of the time. Yes. Plus some of the trips we have to make to Rome every year. Of course, yeah. Again, to share best practices. And then we hear how the mission of the church is going on all over the world. Yeah. But also within Africa, we have like the English-speaking national directors of the Pontifical Mission Societies, for which I'm the president, and we have to have meetings on that level. And then we meet maybe once every 2 years, and have to coordinate that as long as I am the president. Mm-hmm. And now we are thinking of having an all-African meeting together with the French-speaking national directors of the Pontifical Mission Societies, and the English-speaking, and the Portuguese-speaking.
Angola, don't forget about Angola.
So all that is like, but the good thing, we do it as a team, and we reach out through fellow priests and nuns and lay leaders, so that we take this message we kind of produce posters most of the time. We don't have programs like this on the radio, though sometimes I have the opportunity to go on Radio Maria and present.
Right. Yeah.
And be interviewed like you're interviewing me, or Radio Sapiencia, which is in Kampala. And this year, the Catholic Church in Uganda opened up the Uganda Catholic Television. So we can also air on the television, and this goes far. So that's basically what I try to do, coordinate all that.
Well, I will say that it sounds an awful lot like, and you described the parishes and the dioceses as different than the U.S. dioceses, but we have a similar network here. And we as diocesan directors meet with our national director, and he really counts on us. He has a team, but he counts on us to be those representatives and to communicate and keep track of what needs to be done. Now, I'm afraid it's time for another break from Pontian, but we're going to come right back and talk about the faith of the people in Uganda and perhaps some of those missionary needs as well. So we'll be right back in just a moment to continue our conversation about the Pontifical Mission Societies in Uganda. Be right back.
Did you know that Catholic Charities accepts car donations? If you're ready to free up space in your garage and put a stop to all those expenses that go along with owning a car, we will gratefully accept your donation, whether the car is running or not. You choose a pickup time that is convenient for you, and we will make the donation as easy as possible free of charge. You'll receive a charitable donation receipt as well. We accept all types of vehicles nationwide, and you will know that your donation is made to Catholic Charities, an agency you can trust. To learn more about donating your car, call 877-786-4483. That's 877-786-4483. Thank you.
I am a seminarian.
The Church needs compassionate and well-trained priests to help guide each of us through life.
What inspires me, what draws me always to the priesthood is continue to see priests be a beacon of hope for other people.
You can play a part in the education of these young men as they prepare for a life of service to others.
I want to be that beacon of hope too, and it sets my heart on fire.
To support our seminarians, make your gift at archchicago.org/seminarian fund or call 312-534-7959.
The cemetery ministry is a core ministry of our Catholic faith tied to the corporal works of mercy. It's comforting to know that our Catholic cemeteries are caring for the remains of our loved ones awaiting the resurrection. There are 44 Archdiocese of Chicago Catholic cemeteries willing to help you in your time of loss. Call 708-449-6100 or visit CatholicCemeteriesChicago.org. Catholic Cemeteries, serving the Catholic community since 1837.
You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Thanks for letting us be part of your morning. Now again, Catholic Chicago.
Welcome back to Mission Matters Live. I am Megan Mio, Director of the Global Mission Office here in the Archdiocese of Chicago, and you're listening to WNDZ 750 AM. I'm here with Father Pontian Kaweesa, who is the National Director of the Pontifical Mission Societies in the African country of Uganda. Now, before our last break, we were talking a little bit about what it means to be the National Director for Pontifical Mission Societies. And you mentioned, of course, the surprisingly high, very religious and Christian nature of Uganda. And surprising, I guess, I don't know. I should know. But I think for some people, they might be quite surprised to hear how many Catholics and Christians there are. And that how huge these dioceses are that you're working with. So I thought maybe it might be helpful for you to share with us and our listeners a little something about the history of faith in Uganda. Tell us about the character of the people. Please.
Thank you very much. The church in Uganda is relatively young. Mm-hmm. The first missionaries came to Uganda in 1878 for the Protestants, Anglicans, and 1879 for the Catholics. We have the Catholics as Father Laudel, Morpel, Laudel Simon, and Brother Amas, Delamas. He's just a brother. Mm. And in a few years of that first evangelization, which went very well because the king was receptive and he accepted the missionaries to educate his subjects, the young men, writing, doing all that stuff. But in doing that, they also found the Catholic faith. Hmm. And now, some of the things that the king who invited the missionaries died, but his son succeeded him, and he was not particularly kind, and he had his own faults, bad behavior. So when these young men realized the difference between what their religion is telling them and what their king is telling them. They just couldn't just follow suit.
Yeah.
Their religion and faith was telling them something else, and the king was demanding something else from them. So, and they said no. Once you meet Christ, once you know the good news, the gospel, don't just do whatever people tell you. So they disobeyed the king. They went for instructions at night, learning the faith. They taught others the good news. And this made the king and his officials really angry. They said, oh, these subjects, they are turning against us. They are listening more to the missionaries than to us. Very soon they will take over the kingdom.
Right? There's a threat.
So the king was scared. So he ordered, and he called them together. Said, my people, these young people who are educated, you have a choice to make. You are either for me or you are for the missionaries and your religion. If you are for me, to the right. If you are not for me, to the left. And 46 of these young men stood up and went to the left. And the king says, oh, I order you to be taken and killed. So in Uganda we have 22 Catholic young men who were killed as martyrs. St. Charles Ruanga and Matthias Mulumba and their companions. We also have 24 Anglican martyrs who were killed, but
at that same time
they were all killed in one place called Namugongo. That was the notorious place where the king could order all those who were not obeying him to be killed. But St. Charles Ruanga, who was the leader of the group, as they were walking to that place of torture, he said, kill me here. I'm not going anywhere. Untie me, I'll make the pile for myself, I'll put the wood together. So Charles Ruanga was set free. He made his own fire pile. And they put him on the grill and killed him. And this way, the faith of Ugandans really has its, faith in Jesus Christ, faith in God. But when you have people who died for their faith, the blood of the martyrs is the seed of Christian faith. And because of that history, that courage of these young and brave men. Now, the king, after killing these martyrs and the miracles that ensued, and how many people were still believing in this new faith, it is said that the king himself converted, asked for baptism.
Wow.
The chief executioner who killed this also asked for baptism. And so the faith of this young church then, and even the missionaries were exiled. The king could not kill missionaries. It was not his practice to kill foreigners. So he said, you go back. I'm not touching you. I don't want you in my country. So the missionaries were sent into exile. And it was these young men who did most of the work. They baptized fellow catechumens.
Wow.
Chizito was the youngest, maybe 14 years. He was baptized by Charles Ruanga. And all those young men that died for their faith, they did not die. They didn't die in faith, in vain. So, and that's where the history, briefly. And now we have the 3rd of June, Feast of the Uganda Martyrs. All roads lead to Namugongo. All roads lead to Uganda.
That's a big feast day.
It's a big feast day. Millions and millions of people from within Africa, from all over the world, the Universal Church, they come to celebrate the feast and the brevity, the brave courage of these young people who laid their lives for
I know there are many parishes named for St. Charles Luanga, other members of the Companions. I know I've heard St. Kaweesa as a name for many orphanages and children's ministries.
Yes.
So they've been honored many times through those ways as well, that they're example is still carried very
And my
strongly.
name, Pontian, is a name that was given to one of the martyrs.
Okay.
So I was born during a time when the canonization process of the Uganda martyrs was going on.
Okay.
So my parents chose Pontian, the Uganda martyrs, though he was a pope in Rome, but he was baptized
Everybody's
that
named
name.
after.
And all of us boys in my family,
Yeah.
and we are 7 boys,
Yeah.
are named after the Uganda martyrs. So we sort of call our family the Uganda martyrs family.
Beautiful.
I have 4 sisters. They're not named after the Uganda martyrs, but by default,
Right.
they belong to the Uganda martyrs. And many Uganda martyrs' names are given over to children in Uganda and in Africa and to institutions, which is very, very good. So I want to invite you to come to Uganda for the 3rd of June. Bring as many people as possible. It's a missionary encounter with the people.
Yeah.
And maybe you can rub off some of the blood of the Uganda martyrs because they still perform miracles for people.
Wow. Yeah. God, if God willing. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
I know that liturgy and prayer in Uganda and through many places in Africa always includes lots of music and dancing.
Oh, yes.
And beautiful traditional dress, and everything is very symbolic of that deep faith and the martyrdom, the willingness to sacrifice for your faith. It's amazing.
Yes.
So I wondered then if we could just kind of pivot then, talking about the missionary origins in Uganda, and then talking about some of the missionary work going on today, some of the kinds of challenges and gifts that Uganda has to offer to our universal church. Yes. Tell us about what's going on.
Okay, so this young church, we are lucky, is young and vibrant, like all young things that are young, young people. Right. The sky is the limit, but there are also challenges. But the good thing about the young church, we still have many people coming to church on Sundays.
That's great.
We still have many vocations to the priesthood and religious life.
Yeah.
Many people get married in church. Many people still look for that old Catholic education, and they can find it within the Catholic schools. So many schools have been built on the Catholic foundation, and many, even Muslims, would rather bring their children to Catholic schools rather than to their Muslim schools. Now the churches are full. The problem? Most of the churches that were built by missionaries have become too small.
They're not big enough.
Schools, they're not big enough. The schools are also not big enough. And we need to build more parishes.
Yeah.
As I told you, if one parish is as big as Chicago, the Archdiocese of Chicago,
that might
and
not
you
be
don't
practical.
have a church at every block.
Yeah.
So people have to walk long distances if they are to attend mass in a parish.
Yeah. To have the Eucharist.
Eucharist,
really,
yes. So one of the big challenges, we need to build more churches. Here I know you are putting them together, which is another way of trying to do that.
Yeah,
but over
comparison.
there, sometimes I think how I wish I could just uproot some of these churches and transplant them where they are needed, and then you don't have to worry about selling it to somebody else. You know?
Right.
But we need all these things. We need money to sponsor seminarians to become priests, because we need more priests. We have bishops ordain many priests. Like one bishop in Uganda, in Masaka Diocese, 3 weeks ago, he ordained 16 deacons and 20 priests.
Wow.
But the diocese is still needy of priests. But because of the missionary spirit, he has chosen 2 priests to go out and be missionaries. One of them was sent to another diocese in Uganda.
Okay.
As a fidei donum in another diocese, and that's what we encourage. Another one was sent to the U.S. to come and help because the bishop asked for it.
He's a missionary to us here in the U.S.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And my Diocese of Kiyinda-Mityana has 4 priests working in Richmond, Virginia, 4 priests are there from Uganda, and the 2 priests are in South Dakota.
Oh my gosh. Amazing.
Masaka Diocese has many. Kampala has many. So I think we are talking of the mission of the church expanding and church helping church, sharing the faith. That's very good.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is it, our missionary cooperation. Well, if you can believe it, we have another break. We have to take another break. We're about to get to our last segment, so we got some stuff we need to talk about before the end. It's time for our last break now, but we'll be back to conclude our conversation with Father Pontian Kaweesa. Stay tuned.
Catholic Charities After Supper Visions program offers guests of our Tuesday night supper the opportunity to learn the art of photography. These talented guests, who are often experiencing homelessness, are offered disposable cameras, and they work with volunteer professional photographers to learn the basics of taking photos. Then, the artists go out and capture images on film of anything they find to be beautiful or interesting in the world. Meet the artists and see their extraordinary photos at this year's After Supper Visions photo exhibition on Friday, September 22nd from 5 to 7 p.m. in Vincent Hall at 721 North LaSalle Street. That's Friday, September 22nd from 5 to 7 p.m. Visit After Supper Visions for more information. At After Supper Visions, we are developing film, talent, and hope.
Year 44 for me teaching. When I started here, there were teachers here that had taught me when I was a student. Now I'm the old person. Right now, I teach junior high math. I love when kids find what I'm teaching to be fun and they get it. I see that light bulb go off and it's a thrill. People are always amazed. What? You're here for 44 years? It's hard for me to believe, frankly. I love what I do. Every summer I think, oh, I miss the classroom. Even on the weekends, I think I can't wait to get back on Monday and teach those quadratic equations.
Shape the next generation of leaders. Teach. Apply today at archchicago.org/schooljobs.
For more than 20 years, Catholic Charities Adult Protective Services has been advocating for seniors who are the victims of abuse, neglect, confinement, or financial exploitation. With our partners at local, city, and state agencies, our trained case managers follow through on every concern that is brought to our attention in a cooperative way to ensure that our seniors are safe and protected. According to the Illinois Department on Aging, last year nearly 21,000 cases of elder abuse were reported in Illinois. Of these, only 5% were reported by seniors themselves. So raising awareness is an important part of this issue. If you are concerned about a senior you know, call 800-252-8966. That's 800-252-8966. With your help, we can stop elder abuse and look out for the seniors in our lives.
Welcome back to Mission Matters Live. I am Megan Mio, Director of the Global Mission Office, and I'm here with Father Pontian Kaweesa, who is the National Director of the Pontifical Mission Societies for the country of Uganda. We've been talking about Father Pontian's background, we've been talking about his work as the National Director, talking about the people of Uganda and the history of faith and the ways that the church has grown. It's young, it's vibrant, it has lots of energy, and how your work, I'm sure, has, a lot to do with helping to maintain that growth and to help find the ways where there may be challenges or there may be opportunities that this mutuality, the connections between different local churches could come into play. That's Pontifical Mission Societies is all about that we all kind of contribute. But you have a pretty unique perspective as somebody who has taught and ministered in Uganda, but you also studied and lived here for a time. You have friends and family here. So I wondered if you could speak a little bit about this. In my opinion, this is how I phrase it. This kind of a cutting edge of mission today is, I think, this mutuality, these relationships between local churches that we've developed. And someone like yourself, I think, has a unique perspective on that. So what would you say about our connections between the church here in the USA, in Chicago, and Uganda?
Thank you once again, Mayo. These connections. And I'm going to say that the church in Uganda and the church in the US are connected by visible and tangible activities that are promoted by the PMS, Pontifical Mission Societies. Prayer and actions. We share in each other's mission. Monsignor Killian, National Director of the Pontifical Mission Societies for the U.S., has been to Uganda. And I have taken him to the mission, and he has preached. I have translated for him, and he has liked it. But he said, America might have money, but the people in the mission have the faith. And he said he came and he shared in that faith. And I'm thinking that one of the great gifts that we can share in a mission is that gift of faith. And we bring it to others.
Sure.
Even when our faith is not enough, we are encouraged by those who have or less or more, and we share. So, and again, as we said, because not only me, but there are many priests who have come to study, to have their theological formation at Mundelein. And they have gone back. We're a couple of guys from Uganda. There are some guys from Tanzania. There are some guys from Kenya. Some guys from South Africa. And some guys from West Africa. Now, they went back. They are doing mission over there. Celebrating the sacraments, baptizing, building churches and hospitals or clinic centers. It's all part of this mission. But most especially, we encourage each other on our journey through prayer. Prayer is really necessary. Money can do so many things, but I think prayer. And so I'm thinking to myself that we are all missionaries that Jesus needs today, beginning with our families and the communities, with the time and energy and resource. When the mission actions touch those around us, eventually they have a multiplication effect to reach to the ends of the world. And the PMS, the Pontifical Mission Societies, help us to bridge that gap. You don't have to be there physically, but you can do the praying here.
Absolutely.
Where you are.
The church is the structure, is the way that we can be connected in prayer and faith.
And I'm happy to be part of this dance, if you may call it.
It's a movement. It's an absolutely missionary movement. Well, I want to make sure we don't run out of time to say this. How can our listeners learn more about your work in Uganda?
All right.
Where can they go?
Well, you can visit our website, which is pmsuganda.org. I'll leave you the information. We have an email, postpauganda@yahoo.co.uk. You can also tune in our Uganda Catholic television. Now, I don't know how you're going to do that, but
you can't do that online.
You can also find us on YouTube and enjoy our liturgy and other programs.
Nice.
But ultimately, come to Uganda for a mission visit. You can volunteer, you can make a pilgrimage to the minor basilicas and other places in honor of the Uganda Martyrs on the 3rd of June every year. Uganda is also a beautiful country with almost temperate weather conditions. 80 degrees Fahrenheit on average during the day. At night it could go to 60 or 65. And there are lots of exotic animals too. The big five can be found there.
Wow.
You will also find Father Pontian and missionary disciples like you. And I will leave you with my email if you need it.
Oh boy, okay.
My WhatsApp if you need it. And telephone number, just in case you drop by in Uganda to enjoy mission work together in another country.
Personally making that invitation. Wow, thank you. Well, I know I will be very glad to have it. You're really selling it. You're making it sound wonderful. Honestly, that personal engagement, those relationships, that getting to know someone, getting to know a community, worshiping with people, really listening to one another. This is mission. This is really what mission's about. I'll be honest with you, speaking to our listeners, it's not about the building projects. It's not about the school supplies. It's not about the medicines.
No.
It's about being present.
Exactly.
And really walking with people. And now here we have just a minute left before we, or maybe 2 minutes left before we conclude. We're coming up on World Mission Sunday, which is October 22nd this year in 2023. And this is our day to celebrate being missionary disciples, and we take a special collection for the Society for the Propagation of the Faith. So the funds that day are used for projects around the world in those dioceses and places where there's the greatest need. But World Mission Sunday is a special celebration, an annual celebration. And Father Pontian, in your own words, how do you understand this special day?
Well, the way I understand World Mission Sunday, that's the Sunday, one Sunday in a year, when we celebrate what it is that is really Catholic, universal. Our Catholic faith, our mission of the Church, the one of Jesus Christ, our way of thinking about others so that they too can have the same benefits that we know about. Some people don't know about the benefits that the Catholic Church or having faith in God have to offer. World Mission Sunday is that one opportunity that we can put it out and let people know and ourselves know that we have the best of the best and we want others to come and enjoy it. So, in addition to prayers, collecting money in the basket to assist this and this, World Mission Sunday, as Pope Francis would want us, is really to be missionary disciples. I don't know whether I'm saying that right. But missionary disciples who have our hearts on fire and our feet on the move.
That's right.
So that we take the good news of Jesus Christ to others. Much like the disciples, the two disciples who were on the road to Emmaus, and they are there, they don't understand this guy, this stranger among them. But he wants to continue. They say, come with us, stay with us, Lord. And all right, I will stay with you. And then at the breaking of bread, they recognize Jesus as the risen Lord. And immediately they take off. They take off to go back with hearts on fire and feet on ground to take the good news back to the other people.
That's right.
And what happens when they get there? The disciples already there are sharing, are embellishing the same good news that these two disciples have found. That's more or less the church. The good news is supposed to be good.
Yeah.
Wherever.
Yeah.
You find it, you take it. You find it there, you take it there. It's supposed to be, and that's World Mission Sunday.
Well, Father Pontian, I have to cut you off there. That's Amazing. And you're right. That is the model of the whole church, that story of the road to Emmaus. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure to talk with you. It's been great to have you here in person. Pray that God will continue to bless your ministries as the director of Pontifical Mission Societies. I thank you for listening as well. I ask you to please remember, always be on mission.